Hey everyone, welcome to Spiritual Direction and Soul Cares Sunday Live. So glad that you are with us. And we gather every 2 p.m. Eastern to get together and pursue wisdom and find insanely practical tools for the spiritual journey. And we've been doing these kind of standalone sort of Sunday Lives these last few weeks. And today we're going to be talking about joy and laughter, joy and laughter. I'm really excited for us to be together again. And I think it's really important that we're together and we talk about joy and laughter today, precisely because it's crazy out there. The world seems like it's a really dark and sad and scary space, especially with what's happening with Ukraine. We're going into the third year of pandemic. There's just the images coming out of Central Europe are heartbreaking. And, there's a lot of times where we need to push pause and lament and talk about what's hard. But I also think that talking about joy and laughter can also be a way where we resist. It can be an act of resistance to laugh in the face of evil, to let evil know that they aren't going to win. They aren't going to break our spirits. And so it's important that when things are hard, whether it's big things on the geopolitical stage, like what's happening with Russia and Ukraine, or whether it's just hard things that are happening in my life and in your life, we have these resources of joy and laughter that help us strengthen our spirits, strengthen our human core, strengthen our souls. I'm not talking about avoidance or denial or toxic positivity, but I am talking about that deep, deep joy where we double down on the things that give us joy, which really means the space where we're really truly alive, right? The joy that is the experience of this is who I am. This is what I'm passionate about. This is where I find real purpose and meaning. This is what it means for part of my life to truly be alive. So even in the midst of hard times, finding joy, finding that core of who we are and leaning into those things. It's not just about distraction, right? Like oftentimes we confuse joy with distraction. Like there's nothing wrong with taking time out to binge watch your favorite show. You know what I mean? If it helps you disconnect and relax, and that can make us laugh and that can give us happiness, but that's not joy, right? Like joy is where we're really coming alive. And so when things are hard, it's really important for us to dig down and find joy again, find the things that remind us who we are at the core of who we are, that make us feel alive, that show us our purpose and meaning in life, the things that remind us what we're passionate about. That's what joy is. That's what joy is. And it connects deeply with, you've heard me say before, that ancient theologian who says the glory of God is the human come fully alive, the joyful human, human who is walking deeply in their purpose and in their passion, and they know it and they are alive in it. A French theologian named Teilhard de Chardin says that joy is the most infallible sign of the presence of God. So when we are coming fully alive, and when we're deeply connecting with who we really are and what we're passionate about, what we love, what we're here for, right? Even in the midst of hard times, we are somehow deeply connecting with God. We're deeply connecting with the presence of the God who makes us alive, the God of love, the God who holds all things together and fills all things. So finding our joy is really about finding a deep, deep, profound connection with who and what God really is. And so that's even more important in hard times and in times of uncertainty, right? Because the divine, the sacred God, the one who holds all things together in love, God is the sure foundation, is the unshakable presence. And that can help us overcome whatever we're facing right now, even our feelings, our thoughts, like so many of us that our thoughts and our worries and our what ifs and oh no and the things we can't control, we let those thoughts run wild, and it takes away our joy. It focuses us not on what brings us alive and who we really are, but it makes us very concerned about what other people might think we are, instead of getting us back in touch with who we really are, who we know we are. Because you and I, we're the only ones who can say what we are, right? We're the only ones who get to define what brings us joy and who we are, right? Nobody else gets to tell us that. But when we get caught up in our thoughts and our emotions and our anxieties, right, we're letting, really, most of those are caught up in the unknown, and in what we think other people are thinking. And, the famous quote, what other people's opinion of me is none of my business, because it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter in the long run. So, joy is really key. And that's part of the reason why I'm really excited to talk more about joy today. So maybe put it in the chat. Tell me what brings you joy. What brings you joy? Like, what do you do that brings real pleasure and energy and passion into your life? Even in the absence of any obvious socially beneficial purpose, right? Like, all of us have things that we do that we enjoy doing that, don't necessarily change the world, but they bring us joy and they make us come alive, Alexa says singing. I'm going to throw it in the chat here. I'm going to throw the chat on here so people can see what's going on. Alexa says that singing brings her joy. Singing brings her joy. I'm going to try to throw it up here. Oh, hide that one. We'll say singing right here. Singing. She says singing brings her joy. Singing. I love that. Mark says acting, time with the fur babies. Yes, time with the family, laughing and being with fur babies. Mark says acting. I love it, you guys. Keep the comments coming. What brings you joy? What brings you purpose? What makes you feel like you've come alive, right? What are the things that make you remember who you really are at your deepest core? That's joy. And that's really key for everything that we face. We've got comments coming in the chat. You can read them as they keep going. That is so awesome. I love it. So what brings you joy, right? And also too, think about, like, what do you recall in the past, right? What do you recall in the past that has brought you joy, that might have slipped out of the picture in more recent times? Like, because there's different things in different stages of our life that bring us joy, right? There's lots of different ways that we experience joy. What's something in the past that maybe brought you a lot of joy that you haven't done in a while? What were those things, right? What are those things that have slipped out of the picture in more recent times? Maybe you can reconnect with those, right? Because there's an infinite well of options for us, right? Because each one of us is so deep and complex, right? There's so much to each one of us. Remember that. We've talked about this before. You are so much more than what you are in this moment. Than even in this one moment, you are deeper and more. So there's so much out there for what can develop joy and bring joy to you. And, here's another question that I've been thinking about when I think about joy, is think about for yourself, how are you doing building those things into your schedule, right? Building those things into your routine, right? Because I'm all about insanely practical tools, right? Like, it's one thing to notice the things that bring us joy. It's one thing to go do the activities that help us come alive and make us feel like we're in touch with our purpose. But how do you intentionally build those into your schedule and your routine? Is there an opportunity, right? And can you give yourself permission to maybe prioritize those activities a little more highly than they are right now? Maybe that's what you can do. So think about those things as we think about joy. What brings us joy? When in Native American cultures, when their healers talk to sick people, they ask oftentimes 3 questions to a sick person. They'll ask, when was the last time you sang? When was the last time you danced? When was the last time you told your story? Right? When was the last time you told your story? When was the last time that you were seen as you shared who you are with others, right? Isn't that interesting? When's the last time you sang? When's the last time you danced? When's the last time you shared your story? So, for each one of you, when's the last time you danced? When's the last time you sang? When's the last time you picked up the guitar or the instrument in your house, the piano, the keyboard, went to the keyboard, whatever, right? When's the last time you took pictures of flowers blooming or paused to look at a cloudless sky in the middle of the night, taking in the stars? Or shared some of the story of what you love or what you're passionate about with someone else, Like you've probably heard me say before, like, what's the, we always ask people, what do you do? What do you do when we meet them? But maybe we should start asking people, what do you love, right? What do you love? What do you care about? What's important to you when you meet someone, right? When's the last time you shared those things, See, the journey of life, I think if there's anything we know about joy and laughter, is that the journey of life is actually really serious business in the sense that making thoughtful choices about how you use your time and fill your days is important. But serious doesn't mean joyless, right? It doesn't mean joyless. I think a sign when somebody is over serious and really nitpicky and zeroing in on everything, and like, everything, over seriousness is a sign of spiritual immaturity. It's a sign of emotional unhealth when you're over serious. Now, am I saying that like certain things aren't serious in the world? No, like I don't think anybody should be cracking jokes about the war in Ukraine, right? And it's mind-boggling to me that in our public discourse, there are actually people defending Russia, right? Defending Vladimir Putin. Like that's crazy talk, right? Like there are serious things that it's not time to joke about or whatever, right? But in general, I'm talking about a general tone, and you see this a lot in religious spaces, like you see this like it was a joke in the 80s when you watch Saturday Night Live, they had the church ladies, who saw Satan behind every corner, you know what I mean? Like religious folks tend to be pretty guilty of this because I think religion can end up being about control a lot of times, right? So being serious doesn't mean joyless, but there is the possibility of being over serious, right? But the reality is that the bottom line is like you are entitled to do things that bring you joy. You are entitled to delight in and come fully alive and be all of who God designed you in your uniqueness to be. You're allowed to do the things that have no clear or immediate or redeeming purpose, but you get to do them because they bring you joy, right? Everything doesn't have to be about changing the world. Everything doesn't have to be about, because we can't. Each one of us can't. Like our brains are not wired to be able to comprehend all the information and that we're getting all the time in this day and age, right? So it's like you choosing the things that bring you joy, the things that comfort you. This is really, really important, So what is that, right, for you? What is that? What is the joy that God has placed deep within you? And how can you access it? How can you cultivate it? Because the more we build it into our lives and the more we understand that, like, we're allowed to enjoy our lives, the more we practice joy, the more we cultivate joy, right? It becomes less of a thing that is out there as much as it's a thing that is, we realize that it's a thing that's deep within us that's always been there waiting for each one of us, So how are you going to build those things into your schedule, in your routine, Can you give yourself permission to prioritize those things? And maybe some of us feel like we can't, right? Why? Why don't you feel like you can if you can't? Well, I got to do this, I got to do that. Like some of us are over functioning in our lives all the time, right? Like we don't give time for the joyfulness. We don't give time for the rest. We don't give time to ourselves because we feel like we have to do everything else for everyone else. And 9 times out of 10, it's not stuff that you actually have to do. It's stuff that you think you ought to do. Because if somebody out there found out about it, they judge you. You know what I mean? That you aren't doing enough or whatever, right? I see this like a lot of times, like with my kids and stuff, right? Like parenting in this day and age, man, like people expect you to like, there's this weird unspoken rule about like keeping your kids busy and keeping them entertained. And I'm like, we weren't entertained. Like our parents did stuff for us, but they didn't like center their whole life on making sure that we were never bored. You know what I mean? Like they still had their own lives. They still got to rest, and there's so much of that in the culture. It's like, like it's actually good for the kids to like have to figure out how to entertain themselves sometimes. You know what I mean? Because like at some point, nobody else can take care of their, that's helping them learn who they are and discover what brings them joy and what brings them delight, what brings them alive, right? You know what I mean? So that's kind of key to all of life. Do you see this? How it goes through every age and stage of life, So it's a really big deal, And if you're thinking like you're kind of discombobulated and out of touch with who you are, well, when's the last time you sang? When's the last time you danced, right? When's the last time you shared your story about what you loved, right? Melissa says, my daughter belly laughing in the other room while she's watching on one of her shows on her tablet. I love hearing her like when like what's funny to her. So yeah, that's all. Yeah. So let's talk about that a little more. Let's talk about laughter, right? There's a Native American myth that tells how the creator gave human beings, they call in the story the two-leggeds. The creator endowed human beings with the ability to do everything: talk, run, see, and hear. But the creator was not satisfied until the two-leggeds could do just one more thing, which was laugh. And so men and women laughed and laughed and laughed together. And then the creator said, now you can live. Now you know actually how to live. Isn't that amazing? That's from the Apache people. I think that's an amazing story. And I love how that's rooted in an origin story, right? Like so many times our creation stories in different cultures give us a sense, maybe not of what actually happened when humans came onto the scene or how humans came on the scene, but creation stories are really about giving us a vision for what we are and what we can be, right? What is deeply most truthful and most meaningful about us as persons. And like in Apache culture, they recognize this in this story, right? That you can talk and run and see and hear, but until you laugh, right? You don't really fully come alive. I think of the Christian creation stories, right? That talks about like God breathes into the human being and they become a living soul. The spirit comes into them, right? They breathe in and they breathe out. There's nothing like the breathing in and the forceful pushing out of air as we laugh, right? There's something divine and sacred there. In the Muslim tradition, there's a saying that says, the one who makes his neighbor laugh deserves paradise, right? So like there's so much to say about laughter and the role of laughter and the spirituality of laughter. It vitalizes the very core of who we are. What does that mean? It makes us come alive when we laugh, right? And man, do we need that more than ever? Maybe you need that a lot today, maybe what you've been going through in the past few months or the past couple years, you really need to discover the power of laughing, In another tradition, there's a sacred and joyful celebration of the first laugh. Like in our culture, we talk about the first word of a kid or the first time they walk, or whatever. But in the Diné traditions, which is the Navajo people, when babies are born, they're understood to be part of two worlds. They're seen as still being part of the spirit world and the physical world. And a baby's first laugh, often at around 3 months, is to them a sign of their transition to being fully present in the physical world as a member of their family and their community. Isn't that amazing? So the person who gets to see it or observe it, hear it, right? Or who makes the child laugh for the first time, they believe their character is being passed along to that child. And so then they're responsible for hosting a first laugh ceremony. Isn't that amazing? A first laugh celebration where guests offer food to the child, Um, and then they respond by sprinkling the food on these crystals, salt crystals, as a blessing for the guests and as a first expression of a life of generosity. Isn't that amazing? So the person makes this baby laugh, then they host a party to celebrate the laughter. They bring food to the baby, and then the baby is supposed to like take the food and kind of throw it on these special like food seasonings, these salt crystals, right? As a sign of them stepping fully into the life of the community that is giving and taking in generosity and love and support. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that totally amazing? How laughter is the gateway to coming alive and coming alive to each other and being fully present with each other. Laughter humanizes us, makes us become more deeply aware of what we love and what we're passionate about and what matters to us. Do you see? Do you see how important, especially in the season, how joy and laughter is so key to everything we do? And we are certainly hardwired to laugh, right? And many of us suspect that what we experience as humorous, that changes from culture to culture or family to family and individually. Um, maybe you've never been able to relate to a person sense of humor. You just don't get it. You don't necessarily appreciate it. Maybe your family gatherings don't necessarily look like what's that movie? My big fat Greek wedding. Where all those jokes in that movie. But you smile and your eyes sparkle when you're with your family. Um, as is the case with the neighbor next door, people across town, all around the world. We all connect differently around it. But laughter uh, also, doesn't have to only be in response to things that are funny, right? It's not about forcing humor, right? There's been a growing internet. I just learned about this week, which is amazing. There's this growing international interest in a thing called laughter yoga, which is a practice that was developed by a doctor from India in the mid 1990s. Laughter yoga combines warm up activities and breathing exercises to invite people, group participants, into the shared experience of laughter just for its own benefit, because laughter is literally good for the soul. So there's no humor, there's no like comedians on screens or anything, just the shared and clearly joyful experience of a community of people coming around and laughing together. That's pretty amazing to me, you know? There's scientific literature about this, right? About the empirical benefits of this, that kind of shows a common theme, from these other holistic wellness spaces, which is part of our spirituality, right? That um, they say, hey, the initial results are promising, but more research is needed. I don't know if we need more research. Let's just laugh, let's find reasons to laugh and let's laugh together. Well, maybe when you come home and you're happy to see each other, just laugh, not laugh at the person, not not like that, you know what I mean? But like maybe just laughing when we see each other because we're so delighted in each other's presence, you know? What a way to bless each other. What a way to come alive to each other. What a way to signal that you love each other and that you're for each other and that you love life together. That once again, you're choosing us again. You're choosing the us that is our family or our couple or whatever it is, right? Wherever you find yourself. I think that's pretty amazing, you know? And, I really suspect, as probably you do as you think about this, that, many of our grandmothers' wisdom of having a laugh a day will turn out to be right on, because if you're interested, in exploring these things, you can probably go learn more about it. But laughter is so key. It's kind of like it makes joy real when we laugh together, So from a baby's little giggle to your own sense of humor, to the pure experience of that hearty laughter where you just laugh till you cry. Laughter means you're fully human. It means that you have come alive. It's important, Who would have thought laughter as a spiritual discipline? I mean, talk to me about this. Tell me what you think. Throw some things in the chat. Tell me what you think. How is laughter? How is laughter a part of your life? How do you see it as part of your life? I'd love to know. How's laughter part of your life? When's the last time you laughed like heartily, like full out laughing, like ridiculous laughing? Jill and I were laughing the other day. Oh my gosh, we were just chilling at home, and oh my gosh, we were howling. We got tickled, and we just laughed at everything. I think like one of the most you could go on Instagram, look at the reels, all that. There are some hilarious things in there. I love scrolling through those and finding things that make me laugh. It is so much fun. Even the ones that are just like little kids laughing. There's nothing better than videos of babies laughing. I love it. It gets us deeper connected to what it is. When's the last time you laughed, right? When's the last time you really, really laughed? And, when we think about laughter too, when's the last time laughter has, you know, calmed down or diffused or redeemed a difficult situation? Sometimes the ridiculousness of certain things and how it's absolutely out of control, even when they're painful, sometimes you just have to laugh, you know? Sometimes laughter just helps us get outside of ourselves and see that whatever we're facing isn't the thing. There's something much more alive, and whatever is going on around us or happening to us doesn't actually have to change us, change who we are, you know? When's the last time you laughed? And how do you I mean, I've given examples, but how do you cultivate and express your sense of humor? Where do you find and cultivate laughter in your relationship spaces? You know? I'd love to hear from you. So throw it in the chat. Let me know what you think. It'd be awesome to hear how you guys are laughing. Somebody says here on chat, somebody says there are two people on TikTok that give me belly laughs, deep down belly laughs. Put a link in and let us know. Let us know what it is. Let us know. Would love to find more people to make me laugh. Someone else here says, sometimes I seek laughter on purpose because I realize it's been a long time. In some instances, I have I have to purposely put on a funny show like Schitt's Creek to just laugh and remind myself. Yes, I love that. Anything that's just ridiculous, right? Um, Someone else says spiritual and heavy work is balanced by laughter. Yes, I love that. I make dumb jokes. I make dumb jokes that land if delivered ironically. Laugh aloud. That and sarcasm. Yes, sarcasm can be hard on people, but it can also, especially when it's self-deprecating, that can really be disarming and can make people feel like they're safe, right? And make people feel like you're safe. And that makes people more come alive too, because they feel more connected to others. I love it. I love it. Thank you guys so much for sharing some of your thoughts on this. So in the week to come, notice your experience. I want to invite you to make laughter a mindful spiritual practice and notice your experience of laughter, both privately and with other people. What's making you chuckle? And where have you laughed with others, right? Are you happy with what you see? Or might this part of your life need a little more attention? Maybe it's time to cultivate a little more laughter, a little more joy as an act of resistance, right? As a way to come alive, as a way to care for yourself and for others. And like I said, it'll connect us profoundly and deeply with those we love and with ourselves and ultimately with God. With God. There's an ancient theologian who says this, Meister Eckhart. He says, do you want to know what goes on in the core of God, the Trinity, the Father, Son, and Spirit? He says, I will tell you. At the very core of the Trinity, the Father laughs, and this brings forth the Son, and the Son laughs back at the Father and gives birth to the Spirit, and the whole Trinity laughs and gives birth to us. For all things love God. All things love God. See, I think part of the journey of the spiritual life is helping us see the connections and how things aren't separate issues, but are all deeply connected as a whole. And laughter and joy is really when we come alive to our purpose and our meaning and what makes us truly who we are. That is a manifestation of God's love. The God who delights in God's self and delights in the ones that God has made in God's image. Laughter. It's not just good for the soul, it's from the soul. Joy, it's not just good for the soul to make you come alive, it's from the soul. It's a deep, eternal well waiting within you to be tapped and cultivated and brought forth, especially in the hard times, in the times where we need it the most. Let's choose joy. Let's choose joy. Let's always choose joy, and come alive to ourselves, to each other. And in that way, realize that we are truly coming alive to God. The joy of Jesus, who said that when Jesus said that, our joy will be made complete. Jesus says that we ask not because we receive not because we ask not. So ask, and our joy will be made complete. Our joy will be made complete, whole. A joy that fills our whole sense of self and our lives. I love that. I love that. A gift from the very heart of God that's revealed in us as those who are made in the image of God. That's what it is. Joy and laughter. Joy and laughter. That's it, you guys. That's my thing for today. Joy and laughter. I hope you have a lot to think about. I hope you've had a lot to consider. I hope you guys will pay attention to the way laughter and joy plays a role in your days. I hope you'll look for ways to cultivate it more this week, even as we move into the season of Lent. I cannot wait to start our Lent series. It's called Crossing the Desert. It is going to be awesome. It is going to be such a good time. We're going to be learning as we walk through this season more and more about things that really can, disciplines and spiritual practices that can help us cultivate that joy and cultivate that love. We're going to be learning about the power of letting go and learning to see our lives clearly and to live simply within it. Even as we cross through difficult times or continue to live in situations that are less than ideal, we can make it through, and we can find the resources to not just cross the desert and trudge through, but to truly thrive and to find life in the midst of this season. So I cannot wait to tell you more about what's going on and the types of things we're going to be digging into this starting next Sunday, March 6th. For Crossing the Desert, which will be our Lent series for the next 6 weeks, starting next Sunday, March 6th. So I hope you guys have a great, great week. I hope you have an awesome, awesome, awesome day today. It is beautiful here. Blue skies, crisp, cold air. Wherever you are, whatever the weather, I hope you find joy and you come alive to the deepest presence of God and God's delight in you today. You are so loved, and thank you for spending time with me again today on Sunday Live, and we'll see you guys next week for Crossing the Desert.